When the time of God, Hajjah, and his hosts was fulfilled, Jehovah brought the earth into Dan of Ain, and the ark Lace, his angels descended in a ship of fire, and delivered God, his lords, of the earth, and all the hosts under them who were prepared for the Etherian resurrection. At this time there were 625 million inhabitants in Atmospheria, and the number of the second harvest was 280 million. The ascent of the second harvest was like the ascent of the first harvest. And the place of the landing of the second harvest in the firmament of heaven was in Lace, and Bin, and the grade of the harvest was 78, being 2 less than the grade of the first harvest. So the heavens of the earth passed into the care of the succeeding God and Lords, who had been raised up and prepared for those commissions. And for the present there were no more Etherians dwelling in these regions. Jehovah had said, "Those who come out of the earth shall be sufficient to themselves. As a mother provides for her child, so do I provide for the spirit generations of the corporeal world. But when they are mature in wisdom, strength and love, I command them to take the offices of lords and God in the management of my kingdoms." So it came to pass after the ascent of the Etherians, that the whole earth and its lower heavens were under the dominion of those who had sprung up out of the earth. And it became as saying, the first was Etherian rule, the second was Atmospherian rule. For the earth had lords who had been on no other world, and a God who had never been on other worlds. And it likewise came to pass, that the Atmospherian rulers were more lenient in their government, and less tyrannical, which is to say, less directing and exacting, for the sake of resurrection, than the Etherians had been. For as the Etherians had forbidden the Essenes, the newly dead, to return to their mortal kindred, until their 50th year in spirit life, it was not so with the present lords and God, for they indulged hundreds of thousands of Essenes for sympathy's sake to return to their mortal kindred. And these Essenes did not become workers in heaven, either for others, or for their own resurrection to higher regions, but they became idlers and vagabonds in the lower heaven, often living with their mortal kindred till their mortal kindred died, and then, in turn, persuading these Essenes to do even as they did. And God perceived, when it was too late, that his leniency had laid the foundation for disorganizing the kingdom of heaven. For the strolling idlers, knowing no other heaven, sowed the spirit of disbelief throughout the places of learning and industry in the lower heaven, persuading others that they were toiling to no good purpose. They, the unbelieving spirits, said, "Behold, it was told us on earth there was a Jehovah. But we are in heaven, and yet we do not find him. Now we know, in truth, there is no all person. Come, then, let us seek ease and the rich viands, that is to say, items of food, that rise up out of the earth. A man lives on the earth and dies, and his spirit floats about, and then there is no more of him. Why will you serve the Lord? Why will you serve God? Be free and live for yourselves instead of for others." Thus it came to pass that little by little the lower heaven began to fall from its high estate. The third Dan was 600 years, and God and his lords, having provided successors, ascended with their harvest to Etheria. And its number was 408 million brides and bridegrooms, and their grade was 66. The fourth Dan was 500 years, and the harvest was 600 million brides and bridegrooms, and their grade was 58. The fifth Dan was 300 years, and the harvest was 200 million, and their grade was 50, which was the lowest grade capable of emancipation, or capable of surviving in Etheria. For below grade 50 the spirit is pulled more toward the earth than away, and 50 and above the spirit is drawn more toward light, Etheria, than corpor, materiality. And now darkness set in, and covered all the earth. And from this time until the end of the cycle, which was 3,000 years from the birth of the second race of man on earth, known as the Ehins, there were no more resurrections to the emancipated heavens. The kingdom of Horde was broken up and dissolved. The spirits did not love to labor, or learn according to Jehovah's plan, but returned to the earth attractions. And they were called Drujas, with such lost spirits being known by various titles throughout the expanse of time, including Drudge in India, Emancipation and Wanying in China, Oahspe in the Algonquin tribes, familiar spirits in Jarafa, or to be feared, among the Hebrews, Doppelganger, or the double, among the Germans, and ghosts, fairies, wraiths, etc. in modern times, because they did not desire a resurrection. And God, lords, officers, and teachers were without subjects and pupils. And mortals were overwhelmed by thousands and millions of Drujas, so much so, or to such an extent, that the Ashars were powerless to accomplish good inspiration. At this time there were more than 3 billion angels in Atmospheria, and for the most part, they dwelt on earth. Thus ended the first cycle of the first heaven of the earth.